My name is Elena, and I am 34 years old. I used to believe that 8 years of marriage meant something. I used to believe that the man sleeping next to me every night was my best friend, my partner, my forever. But lately, I have been sitting alone in our living room at 11 o'clock at night, listening to my husband laugh in his home office. The thing is, that laugh is not for me anymore. It has not been for a long time. I never imagined I would become the most exciting stranger my husband ever met online. Before we dive into this story, I would love to know where you are watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below. And if you have ever felt invisible in your own relationship, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Stick around, because what happened at that dinner table changed everything I thought I knew about my husband and myself. I met Ryan at a local book fair in Portland, Oregon when I was 24 years old. It was one of those crisp autumn afternoons where the leaves were turning golden and the air smelled like coffee and old paper. The book fair was held in a converted warehouse downtown with rows upon rows of tables covered in secondhand books, rare editions, and forgotten paperbacks that smelled like someone's grandmother's attic. I remember what I was wearing that day: a cream-colored sweater that was slightly too big for me, jeans with a small hole in the knee, and worn leather boots that I had owned since college. I had not dressed to impress anyone. I was just there for the books, hoping to find something interesting to read on the long, rainy weekends that Portland was famous for. I was browsing through a table of classic literature when I reached for a worn copy of East of Eden. The cover was faded, the spine was cracked, and someone had written their name in pencil on the inside cover. It was perfect. But just as my fingers touched it, another hand reached for the same book. I looked up and saw him for the first time, tall, with messy brown hair that looked like he had run his fingers through it one too many times. He had kind eyes, the color of coffee with just a little cream, and he was wearing— He gestured at the small stack of books I was already carrying. Let me see. You have got Hemingway, Fitzgerald, and is that a collection of Flannery O'Connor short stories? Yeah, you are definitely the right person for Steinbeck. We ended up talking for 3 hours at a cafe down the street. He told me his name was Ryan, that he was 26 years old, and that he worked as a software engineer for a mid-sized tech company downtown. He had grown up in a small town in eastern Oregon, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone and Friday nights meant high school football games. I told him about myself, too, how I had moved to Portland after college to pursue a career in graphic design, how I had fallen in love with the city's quirky neighborhoods and endless coffee shops, how I spent most of my free time reading or wandering through bookstores looking for hidden treasures. By the time the sun went down, I knew there was something different about him. He was not like the other guys I had dated, the ones who talked too much about themselves or checked their phones every 5 minutes. Ryan listened. He asked questions. He remembered small details and brought them up later in the conversation. When we finally said goodbye, he asked for my number. I gave it to him without hesitation. Our first official date was the following weekend. He took me to a small Italian restaurant that he said had the best pasta in the city. He was right. We shared a bottle of wine and talked until the restaurant closed, and then we walked along the waterfront until midnight, not wanting the evening to end. On our third date, Ryan surprised me with something that made my heart stop. He handed me a small wrapped package with a shy smile. "I found this at an estate sale," he said. "I thought of you." Inside was a first edition of Charlotte's Web, my favorite book from childhood. I had mentioned it once in passing during our first conversation at the cafe, just a casual comment about how that book had made me fall in love with reading. He remembered. That was the moment I knew I was falling in love with. We took road trips every summer, packing up our old Subaru and driving up and down the Pacific coast with no real destination in mind. We had a running list of the best diners we'd discovered, rating their pancakes on a scale of 1 to 10. We found hidden beaches and stayed until the stars came out. We pulled over at scenic overlooks and took photos that we printed and hung on our walls. Those trips were magical. Hours and hours in the car together, talking about everything and nothing. Our dreams for the future, our fears, our childhood memories, the books we were reading, the music we loved. I never once felt like I was running out of things to say to him. After 3 years of marriage, we bought our first home together. It was a modest two-bedroom house in the suburbs of Portland with original hardwood floors, a fireplace that actually worked, and a small backyard that was overgrown and neglected when we moved in. I transformed that backyard into a garden. I planted roses along the fence, lavender near the patio, and tomatoes in raised beds that Ryan helped me build. He constructed a little wooden bench and placed it under the old oak tree so I could sit and watch everything grow. "This is your happy place," he said the day he finished the bench. "Every queen needs a throne." I loved that house. I loved the creaky stairs and the way the light came through the kitchen window in the morning. I loved the way it smelled like coffee and fresh flowers. I lay there for a moment, listening. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of the refrigerator downstairs. Then I heard something, a faint sound coming from down the hallway. Voices, or rather one voice, Ryan's voice, low and murmuring. I got out of bed and walked down the hallway toward his office. Light was seeping out from under the door, a thin yellow line against the dark carpet. I should have knocked. I should have just gone back to bed and asked him about it in the morning, but something made me stop and listen. I pressed my ear against the door. Ryan was talking in a low voice, almost a whisper. I could not make out the words, but I could hear the tone. Soft, intimate, the way you talk to someone you care about. Then I heard him laugh. Not the polite, distant laugh he gave me when I tried to tell him something funny at dinner. This was a genuine, warm laugh, the kind of laugh that comes from somewhere deep, the kind of laugh he used to give me when we first started dating. My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I pushed the door open gently, slowly, trying to make no sound. Ryan was sitting at his desk with his back to me, his laptop open in front of him. The screen was angled away, but I could see the blue glow reflected in his glasses. He spun around the moment he heard the door, and his hand flew to his laptop, closing it quickly. "Elena." His voice was a little too loud, a little too casual. "What are you doing up?" "I could not sleep. Who were you talking to?" He went upstairs, and I heard him moving around in our bedroom. 15 minutes later, he came back down wearing a button-up shirt and slacks. He looked nice, but his expression was distracted, like his mind was already somewhere else. At the restaurant, things started okay. We were seated at a cozy corner table with candles flickering between us. I ordered a bottle of wine, the same Chianti we had shared on our anniversary all those years ago. We talked about safe topics, the weather turning colder, the new family that had moved in down the street, the leaky faucet in the upstairs bathroom that we kept meaning to fix. It was pleasant enough, but there was something missing. That spark, that easy connection we used to have. It felt like we were two strangers making polite small talk, not a couple who had spent nearly a decade building a life together. I was trying to think of something meaningful to say when Ryan pulled out his phone. "Just need to check something real quick," he said, not even looking at me. I watched him scroll. I watched him type something, his thumbs moving quickly across the screen. I watched a small smile cross his face as he read something on the display. The butterflies in my stomach turned to lead. "Is it important?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. He glanced up, irritation flickering in his eyes. "What?" "Whatever you were looking at, is it important?" "It is just work, Elena." His tone was dismissive, almost condescending. "Relax." But it was not work. I could tell by the way he angled his phone away from me, by the way his fingers moved quickly to close whatever app he had been using when he finally put the phone down, by the way he seemed more engaged with that small screen than he had been with me all evening. The rest of the dinner passed in silence. We ate our entrees without speaking, the only sounds the clink of silverware against plates and the murmur of other diners around us. When the waiter came by to ask if we wanted to see the dessert menu, Ryan said no before I could even open my mouth. We drove home in uncomfortable quiet. I stared out the window at the passing streetlights, trying not to cry. When we pulled into the driveway, Ryan was out of the car and heading toward his— Yes, stale. He said it again, like he was testing the word, like he enjoyed the way it sounded. We do the same things every single day. We have the same conversations. We eat the same meals. I feel like I am suffocating, like I am trapped in this life that just keeps repeating itself over and over. I stood there, trying to process what he was saying. Stale. After 8 years of building a life together, after everything I had sacrificed, after all the love I had poured into this relationship. What are you saying, Ryan? I could hear my voice shaking. What have I done wrong? He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture. Instead of trying to break into his phone, I did something else. I memorized the name of the app, Spark Connect, and I memorized the name, Sophia. That night, after Ryan went to his office and closed the door, I sat in our bedroom with my laptop and searched for information about Spark Connect. What I found made my stomach turn. Spark Connect was described on its website as a social discovery platform. It allowed users to create profiles based on their interests and connect with like-minded people nearby. The marketing made it sound innocent. Make new friends, discover shared passions, connect with your community. But when I dug deeper into forums and reviews and Reddit threads, a different picture emerged. People used Spark Connect for secret conversations, for flirting with strangers, for building emotional connections outside their relationships. The app was designed to feel safe and anonymous, with features that made it easy to hide activity from suspicious partners. Messages could be set to auto-delete, profile photos could be blurred or hidden. The whole thing was built for discretion, which made it perfect for people who wanted to step outside their marriages without technically doing anything physical. I read story after story from betrayed spouses who had discovered their partners on this app. The descriptions were eerily similar to what I was experiencing. The late nights, the secretive phone use, the emotional distance, the sudden criticism of the relationship, the partner who seemed checked out at home but came alive when talking to strangers online. Everything clicked into place with a terrible clarity. Ryan was not overworked. He was not stressed about his job. He was not struggling with some personal issue he was not ready to discuss. He was investing his emotional energy in strangers online, while I sat alone in the next room, wondering what I had done wrong. For the next several nights, I continued my quiet investigation. I noticed that Ryan always left his phone on his nightstand before going to his office, which meant he was using his laptop or tablet for these conversations. He was being careful, smart, harder to trace. I noticed that he seemed happier after his office sessions, more relaxed, like he had just spent time with someone who energized him instead of drained him. I noticed that he had started caring about his appearance again. New shirts, new cologne, more time in front of the mirror, all for conversations with women he had never met in person. One night, I decided to take a risk. I told Ryan I was going to bed early. I said I had a headache, that I just wanted to sleep. He nodded distractedly and said he hoped I felt better, already moving toward his office. I went to our bedroom and turned off all the lights. I got into bed, pulled the covers up, and lay perfectly still in the darkness. I waited. Around 10:30, I heard Ryan get up from wherever he had been sitting and pad down the hallway toward his office. The door opened, then closed. The lock clicked. I waited another 30 minutes, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my temples. Then I got out of bed as quietly as I could. I crept down the hallway in the darkness, placing each foot carefully to avoid the creaky floorboards. When I reached his office door, I pressed my ear against the wood. His voice was low, tender, a tone I had not heard him use with me in years. "You make me feel alive again," he was saying. I cannot explain it. When I'm talking to you, I feel like myself for the first time in years. My wife, she does not understand me the way you do. She never has. I had to press my mouth against my body to keep from making a sound. My whole body was shaking. I wanted to burst through the door and scream at him. I wanted to demand to know who he was talking to, what he was saying, how long this had been going on. But I did not. Instead, I forced myself to take a deep breath, to think, to plan. Confronting him now would not give me the answers I needed. He would deny everything, gaslight me, make me feel crazy for eavesdropping, and I would never know the full truth of what had been happening behind that door. I needed more. I needed proof. I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with before I made my next move. I went back to bed and lay there until morning, my mind racing with the beginning of a plan. If Ryan wanted excitement from strangers, I would give him exactly that. Over the next few days, I threw myself into research with the same focus I brought to my design projects. I learned everything I could about Spark Connect, how to create an account, how the matching algorithm worked, what kind of profiles got the most attention, how to seem interesting and mysterious without revealing too much. I created a new email address using a fake name. Then I downloaded Spark Connect onto an old tablet that I kept in my closet, one Ryan did not even know I still owned. I decided my fake persona would be named Lily. I spent hours crafting her identity, building her from the ground up like a character in a novel. Lily was 31 years old. She was a freelance writer who worked from home, which would explain why she was available to chat at odd hours. She lived in Seattle, close enough to Portland to be intriguing, but far enough that Ryan would not expect to run into her accidentally. I gave Lily a personality that I knew would appeal to Ryan. She loved hiking and exploring the outdoors. She was into independent films and art house cinema. She read literary fiction and could discuss themes and symbolism for hours. She was thoughtful and creative and just a little mysterious. In other words, she was everything I thought I still was, everything Ryan had apparently forgotten I could be. For the profile photo, I faced a dilemma. I could not use a random picture from the internet because reverse image searches could expose the deception, and I obviously could not use my own photo. After days of consideration, I remembered Amanda. Amanda was a friend from college. We had been close during our sophomore and junior years, bonding over late nights studying and shared complaints about difficult professors. But after graduation, we had drifted apart the way college friends sometimes do. She had moved to Paris to work for a fashion magazine, and we had lost touch entirely. I had not spoken to her in at least 5 years, and I knew she had no connection to Ryan or anyone in our current social circle. I found some of Amanda's old photos on social media, ones from years ago that were not her current profile pictures. She had changed her appearance significantly since then, cutting her hair short and dyeing it a different color. The old photos showed a version of her that no longer existed. I chose a photo where she was smiling naturally, looking away from the camera. I cropped it and adjusted the lighting slightly, just enough to make it harder to trace. Then I uploaded it as Lily's profile picture. I wrote Lily's bio carefully, sprinkling in interests that I knew Ryan would find irresistible. I mentioned a love of Steinbeck novels, because East of Eden had brought us together all those years ago at the book fair. I mentioned favorite hiking trails in the Pacific Northwest. I mentioned a fondness for late-night conversations about life and philosophy and the meaning of it all. I read it over a dozen times, tweaking and adjusting until it felt perfect. Then I created the account and let Lily loose in the world. The trap was set. Now I just needed my husband to walk into it. The first few days on Spark Connect felt surreal, like I had stepped into some strange alternate reality where the normal rules of my life no longer applied. I would lie in bed at night after Ryan had retreated to his office, scrolling through the app on my hidden tablet, watching how it all worked. The interface was slick and user-friendly, designed to make connecting with strangers feel natural and safe. Profiles would appear one after another, and you could swipe through them, pausing on anyone who caught your interest. The conversations I observed were eye-opening and deeply disturbing all at once. So many people looking for connection outside their real lives. So many people sharing intimate thoughts with complete strangers while their partners sat in the next room oblivious. So many lies being told and believed. On the third night, I adjusted Lily's location settings to make sure she would appear in searches for people in the Portland area. If Ryan was using this app to find local women to chat with, Lily needed to be visible to him. She needed to show up in his feed like a gift from the universe. I also made sure Lily was active at the times when Ryan seemed most engaged with the app. Late evenings, after 10 o'clock, when he was safely locked away in his office, thinking his wife was asleep. It did not take long. On the fourth night, I opened the app and saw that Lily had received a new message. My heart stopped when I saw the username, R_tech guy. The profile picture was vague, just a silhouette of a man against a sunset, the kind of generic image that could be anyone. But the bio made my blood run cold. Software engineer in Portland, love hiking, good books, and conversations that matter, looking for genuine connection. I knew that bio. I recognized the phrasing, the cadence, the specific combination of interests. I had helped Ryan write something similar years ago when he was updating his LinkedIn profile. He had used the same language, the same priorities, the same carefully curated version of himself. It was Ryan. I was certain of it. His message to Lily was simple and direct. Hey Lily, I noticed you mentioned East of Eden in your bio. That book changed my life when I was younger. Still one of my favorites. What is it about Steinbeck that draws you in? I stared at those words for a long time. My husband, sitting in his office 20 feet away from me, was reaching out to a stranger to talk about the very book that had brought us together at that book fair 10 years ago. The irony was so painful, it almost made me laugh or scream. I was not sure which. I took a deep breath and forced myself to think strategically. This was what I had been waiting for. This was my chance to understand what was really happening in my husband's head, to hear the thoughts he would never share with me. I typed out a response, keeping it thoughtful and engaging, the kind of message that would make him want to write back. Hi there. Steinbeck has this way of making you feel the weight of human experience, you know? East of Eden especially. The whole Tim Shell thing, the idea that we have the choice to overcome our darker impulses. It feels more relevant every year. What about you? What was it about that book that stayed with you? I read it over 3 times, making sure it sounded like someone Ryan would want to know better. Then I hit send. He responded within 5 minutes. And so it began. Over the next 2 weeks, Lily and Ryan messaged each other every single night. I would sit in our bedroom with the tablet hidden under the covers, typing responses while Ryan sat in his office with his laptop, pouring his heart out to a woman he had never met. The cruel irony was not lost on me. We were in the same house, separated by walls and doors and 8 years of accumulated disappointments, having the most intimate conversations we had shared in years. But he did not know he was talking to me. He thought he was talking to someone new, someone exciting, someone who was not his boring, stale wife. And that was what made it so devastating. With Lily, Ryan was charming. He was funny and quick-witted and thoughtful. He remembered small details from previous conversations and brought them up days later. He asked questions about her life and seemed genuinely interested in the answers. He was attentive in a way he had not been with me in years. He was everything I had fallen in love with, everything he had apparently stopped being with me, even though I was right there, waiting for him to notice. The conversation started with books and movies and hiking trails, safe topics that allowed them to establish rapport. But within a few days, Ryan started to open up more. He told Lily about feeling stuck in his life, about going through the motions every day without really feeling anything, about wondering if this was all there was, if he had somehow missed his chance at something bigger and more meaningful. "You ever feel like you were living someone else's life?" he wrote one night. "Like you woke up one day and realized that nothing turned out the way you imagined it would?" I read those words in our bedroom while he typed them from his office. I could hear the faint click of his keyboard through the wall. "What did you imagine?" Lily asked. "I do not know, exactly. Something more, something that made me feel alive. I thought marriage would be different. I thought she would be different." She. Me. His wife. The woman he had vowed to love and cherish until death do us part. "Tell me about her," Lily wrote, "if you do not mind. I want to understand." And he did. Ryan told Lily that his wife was a good person. He acknowledged that much. But he said they had grown apart over the years. They had nothing in common anymore. They never talked about anything meaningful. Being around her felt like a chore. "She is always there," he wrote. "Physically, I mean. She is always in the house, always around, but it's like she's not really there at all, like she stopped trying years ago. I feel lonelier with her than I do talking to you, and we have never even met in person." I screenshot everything. Every confession, every complaint, every sweet nothing he typed to this stranger who he thought understood him better than his own wife. As the weeks went on, Ryan became more and more attached to Lily. He started calling her the highlight of his day. He sent her good morning messages before she even had a chance to log on, and good night messages when he finally logged off at 1 or 2 in the morning. He told her things he had never told me, vulnerabilities and fears and dreams he had kept hidden throughout our entire marriage. One night, he wrote something that made my blood run cold. "I wish I had met you 10 years ago, Lily, before everything got so complicated, before I made choices I cannot take back." 10 years ago was when he met me. I sat with that message for hours, reading it over and over until the words lost all meaning. The man I had married, the man I had loved with everything I had, was wishing he had never met me. In that moment, something inside me shifted permanently. The sadness was still there, the grief for the marriage I thought I had, but it was being overtaken by something else. Clarity, resolve, a cold, hard understanding that this relationship was already over, whether Ryan knew it or not. My only remaining task was to decide how it would end. The messages between Lily and Ryan grew more intense with each passing day. What had started as casual conversation had evolved into something that looked, from the outside, remarkably like an emotional affair. Ryan was not just invested anymore. He was infatuated. He was checking his phone constantly throughout the day, smiling at notifications, typing quick responses whenever he had a free moment. He had started caring about his appearance again, buying new clothes, trying a new hairstyle, wearing cologne that I had never smelled before. I watched him transform into someone who was clearly trying to impress someone, and that someone was not his wife. After about a month of nightly conversations, Ryan finally made the move I had been waiting for. "I know this might sound crazy," he wrote to Lily one evening. "We have never even met in person, but I feel like I know you better than I know most people in my real life. There is something between us. I can feel it. Can you?" Lily took her time responding. I had learned that making him wait heightened his anticipation, made him value her attention more. "I feel it too," she finally wrote back. "This connection we have. It is rare, maybe once in a lifetime." "It is," he agreed immediately, "which is why I need to ask you something. I want to meet you, Lily, in person. I need to know if this is real, if what I am feeling is actually possible, or if I have just been dreaming." I stared at those words, my heart pounding in my chest. This was it. This was the moment I had been building toward. Lily did not respond right away. I let him wait for 2 hours, let him wonder if he had pushed too far too fast, let him stew in his own anxiety. Then I typed out her response.
I have been thinking about meeting too, but before we do, I need something from you. I need to know that this is real for you too. That means complete honesty between us. No secrets, no holding back. I want to know everything about you, Ryan, even the parts you are ashamed of. Can you do that? His response came within seconds. Anything. I will tell you anything you want to know. Over the next 3 nights, I extracted every confession I could. I asked about his marriage, not just the surface complaints he had already shared, but the deeper truths beneath them. He told me he had been chatting with women online for almost a year. Lily was not the first, just the one who had captured his attention most completely. There had been others before her, casual flirtations that had fizzled out, a few that had gotten more serious before ending for various reasons. He had been doing this for months before I ever noticed anything was wrong. I asked why. What was he looking for that he was not getting at home? He said he didn't feel seen anymore. His wife looked at him but didn't really see him. She was too busy with her work, her garden, her routine. She had stopped being curious about him years ago. I thought about all the times I had asked about his day, all the questions he had answered with single syllables. Who had really stopped being curious about whom? I asked if he still loved his wife.
He said he did not know. He said love was complicated. He said he cared about her as a person but did not feel in love with her anymore. The passion was gone. The excitement was gone. They were more like roommates than partners. I asked what he would do if he could start over. He said he would make different choices. He would not settle down so young. He would not let himself get trapped in a life that felt too small. I asked if he had thought about leaving her. He said yes, he had thought about it a lot, but it was complicated. The house, their finances, the logistics of separating two lives that had been intertwined for so long. He was not sure he could handle starting over from scratch, but being with Lily made him wonder if it might be worth it. He admitted that he blamed his wife for his unhappiness. He said she had changed over the years, become someone different from the woman he had married. She had made him forget who he was. She had turned him into someone he did not recognize anymore. I read those confessions in our bedroom, tears streaming down my face, while Ryan sat in his office 20 feet away, probably feeling proud of himself for being so open and vulnerable with this wonderful new woman in his life. The thing is, I was not crying because I was sad. Not entirely. I was crying because I finally understood the truth with perfect clarity. Ryan was not the victim of a stale marriage. He was the architect of its destruction. He had checked out years ago, stopped putting in effort, stopped showing up for our relationship. And instead of looking inward, instead of taking responsibility for his own choices, he had blamed me. He had convinced himself that I was the problem, that my boring, predictable presence was suffocating him, when the truth was that he had simply stopped trying. I was not the reason our marriage was failing. He was. And now I was going to make sure he understood that too. I began planning the reveal in meticulous detail. Lily told Ryan she was ready to meet him, finally. After all these weeks of conversation, of building this incredible connection, she wanted to see him face to face. They would have dinner that Saturday at 7 o'clock at a restaurant downtown called the Harvest Table. It was an upscale farm-to-table place, intimate and romantic, the kind of place you took someone when you wanted to make an impression. Lily said she would be wearing a red dress so he could spot her easily. She said she would be waiting at a corner table. She said she could not wait to finally see his face. Ryan was ecstatic. He could barely contain himself in the days leading up to Saturday. He walked around the house with a giddy energy I had not seen in years. He was distracted at dinner, smiling at nothing, lost in his own anticipation. On Friday night, he even told me he had a work dinner the next evening, a client thing. Might run late, so I shouldn't wait up. I nodded and said I understood. I told him to have a good time. Meanwhile, I made my own preparations. I went shopping on Thursday afternoon and bought a deep red dress from a boutique I had always walked past but never entered. It was elegant and beautiful, the kind of dress that demanded attention, the kind of dress you wear when you want someone to remember you. I made a reservation at the Harvest Table for 2, requesting a quiet corner booth with good lighting. I wanted him to see my face clearly when the moment came.
I charged the old tablet and organized all the screenshots chronologically, hundreds of messages that told the complete story of his emotional affair. I wanted to be able to show him exactly what he had said, in his own words, so there would be no room for denial or deflection. I wrote a letter to Ryan by hand, pouring out everything I wanted to say, but was not sure I could articulate in person. I sealed it in an envelope and tucked it into my purse. Saturday morning arrived bright and clear. I watched Ryan get ready for his date with another woman. He showered twice, spending an unusual amount of time on his hair and skin. He tried on 3 different shirts before settling on the navy blue button-down I had bought him for his birthday 2 years ago. He stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his collar, checking his reflection from different angles. He sprayed on cologne, not once, but twice. "Have a good meeting," I said as he headed for the door. My voice was steady, my face was calm. He looked at me for just a moment, and I thought I saw something flicker in his eyes. Guilt, maybe, or discomfort. But then it was gone, replaced by the eager anticipation of a man about to meet his fantasy. "Thanks," he said. "Don't wait up." The door closed behind him. I stood in the silence of our empty house, my heart pounding with anticipation and resolve. Then I went upstairs to get ready for my own date with destiny.
I arrived at the harvest table at 6:45, 15 minutes early. I wanted to be settled, composed, ready when he walked through the door. The restaurant was beautiful in the early evening light, exposed brick walls painted in warm terracotta tones, soft amber lighting from antique fixtures, the gentle murmur of conversation from other diners, a pleasant backdrop that felt worlds away from the confrontation about to take place. The hostess was a young woman with a bright smile and impeccable posture. "Reservation for 2?" I said, "under the name Lily?" "Right this way." She led me to the corner booth I had requested, a secluded spot with a clear view of the entrance. I slid into the seat facing the door and thanked her. "You look beautiful," she said, glancing at my red dress. "Special occasion?" I smiled. "Something like that." After she left, I took a few moments to center myself. I smoothed the fabric of my dress. I checked that the tablet was fully charged and ready in my purse. I touched the envelope containing my letter to Ryan. Then I ordered a glass of red wine, something bold and dry, and waited. The minutes ticked by slowly. I watched the door, my heart rate increasing with each person who entered. An elderly couple celebrating what looked like an anniversary, a group of women clearly out for a girls' night, a young man nervously checking his watch. At 7:02, the door opened again, and there he was. Ryan stepped into the restaurant looking like a man on the verge of something wonderful. He was wearing the navy blue shirt, perfectly pressed. His hair was styled with more care than usual. He had a nervous energy about him, an anticipation that practically radiated off his body. He stood near the entrance and scanned the room, his eyes searching for a woman in a red dress. His gaze swept across the restaurant, passing over me the first time without recognition. After all, why would his wife be here? He was looking for Lily, the mysterious writer from Seattle, the woman who understood him better than anyone. Then his eyes came back to my corner booth. They landed on the red dress, traveled up to my face, and I watched the recognition dawn in slow, excruciating stages. First, confusion, a slight furrow of his brow. Why was Elena here? What a strange coincidence. Then, doubt. The red dress, the corner table, the fact that he was supposed to meet someone here, right now, at this exact time. Then, realization, the pieces clicking together one by one, forming a picture he did not want to see. And finally, pure, undiluted shock. His face went white, all the color draining away in an instant. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. His body seemed to freeze in place, like a man who had just discovered the ground beneath his feet was not solid after all.
I raised my hand and gave a small wave. "Hi, Ryan," I said, my voice carried clearly across the quiet space between us. Or should I say, "Hi, _tech guy. I am afraid Lily could not make it tonight. She had a scheduling conflict. But I am here, your wife. Remember me?" He stood frozen in the middle of the restaurant for what felt like an eternity. I could see his mind racing, trying to process what was happening, trying to find some explanation that would make this all make sense. I gestured to the empty seat across from me. "Come sit down," I said. "We have a lot to discuss." For a moment, I thought he might actually turn and walk out. His eyes darted toward the door like he was calculating his escape route, but something held him there. Maybe it was the public setting and the knowledge that fleeing would cause a scene. Maybe it was the realization that there was no escape from this, that the truth had finally caught up with him. Or maybe, somewhere deep down, he knew he deserved whatever was coming. He walked toward my table like a man approaching his own execution. Each step seemed to require enormous effort, like he was moving through water. When he finally slid into the booth across from me, he could not meet my eyes. "Elena," he started. His voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. This is not what, I do not." I held up my hand to stop him. "Before you say anything, I want to show you something."
I pulled the tablet out of my purse and placed it on the table between us, the screen already illuminated with the first screenshot. I had organized them chronologically, starting with his very first message to Lily and ending with his confession about wishing he had met her 10 years ago. I turned the tablet so he could see the screen clearly. "Do you recognize these?" Ryan stared at the messages, his own words captured in digital permanence staring back at him. His face cycled through emotions, more confusion, recognition, dawning horror. "How?" he finally managed. "How did you—" "I am Lily," I said. "I have been Lily this entire time. Every message you sent her, I received. Every confession you made, I read. Every sweet nothing you whispered to this woman you thought was a stranger, you were saying to me." The silence that followed was deafening. The ambient noise of the restaurant seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of us suspended in this terrible moment. I could see his mind working, frantically trying to process what I was telling him. Every flirtatious message, every late-night confession, every fantasy he had shared. He had been sharing them with me. "I do not understand," he finally said, his voice cracked. "Why would you do this? Why would I catfish my own husband?" I let out a small, humorless laugh. "Because I needed to know the truth, Ryan. You called our marriage stale. You said I was suffocating you. You said you needed something more exciting, and I needed to understand why. I needed to know what was really going on in your head, what you were really thinking and feeling, because you certainly were not telling me." I started swiping through the screenshots slowly, methodically, letting each one sink in before moving to the next. "You told Lily you were lonely, that I did not understand you, that being around me felt like a chore. You told her that you wished you had never met me, that you wished you could start your life over without me in it." "Elena, please." I kept going, my voice steady, even though my heart was breaking all over again. "You blamed me for everything wrong in your life, Ryan. You told a complete stranger that I made you forget who you were, that I turned you into someone you did not recognize, all while I was right here, in this house, trying to figure out what I had done wrong, trying to fix a marriage that you had already abandoned." He buried his face in his hands. His shoulders were shaking. I realized he was crying. Part of me wanted to comfort him. 8 years of marriage does not disappear overnight. The instinct to reach out, to soothe, to make things better was still there, buried under layers of anger and hurt. But I did not reach out. Not this time. "Do you remember this one?" I pointed to a particular screenshot. "The one where you told Lily you had been chatting with women online for almost a year, that she was not the first, just the one who stuck? I was not even special, Ryan. I was just the latest in a long line of strangers you chose over your own wife." He looked up at me, his eyes red-rimmed and desperate.
"I was confused," he said. "I did not know what I was doing. I did not mean any of it, not really. I was lost, Elena. I felt like I was drowning, and I did not know how to tell you." So instead of talking to me, you talked to strangers. Instead of working on our marriage, you checked out and looked for excitement somewhere else. And when you didn't find what you were looking for, you blamed me. You convinced yourself that I was the problem, that my boring, predictable presence was ruining your life. I leaned forward, making sure he could see the certainty in my eyes. But the truth is, Ryan, you ruined your own life. You made choices. You could have come to me and said you were unhappy. You could have suggested counseling. You could have done 100 different things, but instead, you chose the easy way out. You chose to lie and hide and blame everyone but yourself. He was openly sobbing now, tears streaming down his face. Other diners were starting to glance our way, but I didn't care. "I'm sorry," he said between sobs. "Elena, I'm so sorry. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, but I love you. I do. I never stopped loving you. I lost my way. Please, we can work through this. I will delete the app. I will go to therapy. Whatever you want. Just please do not leave me." I studied his face for a long moment, the face I had woken up next to for 8 years, the face I had loved more than any other in the world, the face that now looked like a stranger's. "The man I married would never have done this," I said quietly. "He would have talked to me. He would have fought for us. He would have done the hard work of keeping our marriage alive instead of looking for easy escapes. I don't know who you are anymore, Ryan, and honestly, I don't think you do either." I reached into my purse and pulled out the envelope I had prepared. "This is a letter I wrote you," I said, sliding it across the table. "Everything I want to say, but am not sure I can say out loud. Read it when you get home." Then I placed enough cash on the table to cover my wine and a generous tip. I stood up, gathering my purse. Ryan grabbed my hand. His grip was desperate, almost painful. "Please," he said, "don't go. Not like this. Give me one more chance. I will do anything." I looked down at his hand wrapped around mine, the same hand that had held mine at our wedding, the same hand that had placed a ring on my finger and promised to love me forever, the same hand that had typed all those messages, to Lily, to Sophia, to whoever else had captured his attention over the past year. It felt like the hand of a stranger. "Goodbye, Ryan," I said. I gently but firmly pulled my hand away. Then I walked toward the exit without looking back. The Portland evening was cold and damp, a light mist hanging in the air. I walked 3 blocks before I finally stopped, leaning against a brick wall in a quiet alley, letting myself breathe for what felt like hours. I had done it. I had confronted him. I had shown him the truth and watched him crumble under the weight of it. And somehow, despite the pain, despite the grief, despite everything that was still to come, I felt lighter than I had in years. It wasn't happiness, not exactly, but it was something close to freedom.
The weeks and months that followed that dinner at the harvest table were among the most challenging of my entire life, but they were also the most transformative. I did not go home that night. After leaving the restaurant, I drove directly to my sister Grace's house on the other side of town. It was almost 9 o'clock when I showed up on her doorstep, mascara streaked down my face, a single suitcase that I had secretly packed that morning sitting at my feet. Grace took one look at me and understood. She pulled me into a hug without saying a word, then led me inside and made up the guest room. She poured 2 glasses of bourbon and sat with me on her couch until I was ready to talk. I told her everything: the distance, the late nights, the words stale, spark connect, Lily, the restaurant. All of it came pouring out of me like water from a broken dam. Grace listened without interrupting, her face cycling through shock and anger and sadness and fierce protective love. When I finally finished, she took my hands in hers. "You are the bravest person I know," she said, "and you are going to get through this, I promise." I stayed with Grace for 3 weeks while I sorted out my next steps.
Ryan called and texted constantly in the beginning, dozens of messages every day. Some were desperate apologies, some were angry accusations, blaming me for catfishing him, for tricking him, for not giving him a chance to explain. Some were heartfelt pleas, promises to change, promises to do whatever it took to win me back. I read every message, but did not respond to any of them. It was not about punishment, though I understand why he might have seen it that way. I simply had nothing left to say. I had said everything that needed to be said at that restaurant. The rest was just noise. After 2 weeks of silence, I contacted a divorce attorney. I had thought long and hard about whether there was any path forward for Ryan and me. I had considered couples counseling. I had considered a trial separation with the possibility of reconciliation. I had even considered simply forgiving him and trying to rebuild from the ashes. But every time I imagined a future with Ryan, I saw those screenshots. I heard his voice telling Lily that I was boring, that he made him feel suffocated, that he wished he had never met me. I saw a man who had chosen strangers over his wife, who had blamed me for his own emptiness, who had checked out of our marriage years ago without ever telling me. Some betrayals can be forgiven and overcome, but some break something fundamental, something that cannot be repaired. The divorce proceedings were surprisingly straightforward, largely because Ryan did not contest anything. He agreed to sell the house and split the proceeds equally. He agreed to a fair division of our savings and retirement accounts. He did not ask for anything that was not rightfully his. I think the guilt had finally caught up with him, or maybe he understood on some level that he had lost any right to fight for me the moment he started looking for excitement elsewhere. We met at the attorney's office to sign the final paperwork on a gray Thursday afternoon. Ryan looked like he had aged 10 years. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his clothes hung loosely on his frame, like he had lost weight. "I know sorry is not enough," he said, as we sat across from each other at the conference table. "But I am sorry, Elena, for all of it, for everything I put you through. You deserved better than what I gave you." I looked at him for a long moment. This man I had loved so fiercely. This man I had built a life with. This man I no longer recognized. "I know you are," I said, "and I forgive you. Not for your sake, but for mine. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick." He nodded, his eyes glistening. That was the last real conversation we ever had. The first few months after the divorce was finalized were brutal. I moved into a small one-bedroom apartment in downtown Portland, a modern space with big windows and very little furniture. After 8 years of marriage, I was starting over from scratch. The silence of living alone was almost unbearable at first. I had forgotten what it was like to come home to an empty space, to eat dinner by myself, to have no one to talk to at the end of a long day. There were nights when I lay awake until dawn, wondering if I had made a terrible mistake, wondering if I should have tried harder, wondering if I could have saved my marriage if I had done something differently. But I had started seeing a therapist named Dr. Paulson, who specialized in relationship trauma and life transitions. She helped me understand that doubt was normal, that questioning my decisions didn't mean they were wrong.
Grief is not linear, she told me during one of our early sessions. You are not just mourning the end of your marriage, you are mourning the future you thought you were going to have, the children you might have had, the anniversaries you will never celebrate, the person you used to be. All of that deserves to be grieved. So I let myself grieve. I cried when I needed to cry. I was angry when I needed to be angry. I let myself feel everything without trying to rush through it or minimize it or pretend I was okay when I was not. But grief, I discovered, does not have to be the end of the story. Sometimes it is just the beginning of a new chapter. Slowly, cautiously, I started rebuilding my life. I threw myself back into my design work with an energy I had not felt in years. I reached out to old colleagues and former clients. I updated my portfolio and started actively pursuing larger projects.
6 months after the divorce, I landed a major contract with a tech startup in Seattle, a branding project that challenged me creatively in ways I had almost forgotten were possible. The work reminded me of who I was before I became someone's wife. I had always loved design, the way it combined artistry with problem solving, the satisfaction of turning an abstract concept into something tangible and beautiful. Somewhere along the way, I had lost touch with that passion. Now I was rediscovering it. I started hiking again. Every Saturday morning, I would wake up early, pack a small bag, and drive out to Forest Park, or the Columbia River Gorge, or wherever the trail maps led me. I would spend hours walking through the trees, breathing in the clean forest air, feeling the burn in my muscles as I climbed. Hiking had always been something I loved, but I had stopped doing it regularly because Ryan was never interested. He preferred staying home, and I had adjusted my life to accommodate his preferences without even realizing what I was giving up. Now the trails were mine again. I made new friends through a yoga class at a studio near my apartment, a group of 5 women around my age who started meeting for coffee after every Saturday morning session. They became my support system, my cheerleaders, the people who reminded me that I was more than what had happened to me. One of them, a woman named Priya who had gone through her own divorce 3 years earlier, told me something that stuck with me. "The end of a marriage is not a failure," she said. "It is just an ending, and endings make room for new beginnings." 1 year after the divorce was finalized, I barely recognized the woman staring back at me in the mirror. Not because I had changed physically, though I was healthier and stronger than I had been in years. Regular hiking and yoga had transformed my body in ways I had not expected. But the real transformation was internal. The heaviness I had carried for so long, the constant low-level anxiety about my marriage, the endless wondering about what I had done wrong, all of it had lifted. In its place was something lighter, something freer, something that felt like possibility. I heard through mutual friends that Ryan was still single, still on the dating apps, still searching for that elusive excitement he had convinced himself was missing from his life. Part of me felt sad for him. He was looking for something outside himself that could only be found within. But mostly I felt grateful. Grateful that I had found the courage to leave. Grateful that I had chosen myself. Grateful that I had learned the most important lesson of my entire life. You cannot make someone choose you. You cannot force someone to see your value. You cannot love someone enough to make them love you back the way you deserve. All you can do is recognize your own worth and refuse to accept less than you deserve, even when it means walking away from everything you thought you wanted. I did not just catfish my husband that night at the harvest table. I freed myself from a marriage that was slowly suffocating me. I reclaimed my dignity. I took back my power. I chose myself, maybe for the first time in my adult life. And that, honestly, was the best thing I have ever done. I'm sitting on the balcony of my apartment as I finish telling you this story. The sun is setting over Portland, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and deep purple. I have a cup of tea in my hands, there is nowhere I need to be, and the evening air is cool against my skin. I think about Lily sometimes, the character I created, the woman who knew my husband better than I did. In a strange way, she taught me something important. If someone needs a stranger to feel alive, the problem is not their partner, the problem is them. Ryan was looking for excitement in all the wrong places because he had forgotten how to find it within himself. He blamed me for his emptiness, but the truth is that emptiness was always his to fill. I couldn't do it for him. No one could.
And finally, after 8 years of trying to be enough, I understand that it was never about being enough. It was about being with someone who was willing to show up, someone who would put in the work, someone who would choose the relationship every single day, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. Ryan stopped choosing us long before he ever downloaded that app. I just could not see it until I pretended to be someone else. So here is what I want you to take away from my story.
Your worth is not determined by whether someone else can see it. If someone makes you feel invisible, if someone calls your love stale while chasing excitement with strangers, if someone blames you for their own unhappiness instead of doing the work to fix it, the problem is not you. It never was. Walk away from anyone who makes you feel small. Choose yourself, even when it is terrifying, even when it means burning down the life you thought you wanted to build a new one from the ashes. Because at the end of the day, the most important relationship you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. Make sure that one is not stale. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever discovered that someone you trusted was living a double life? Have you ever had to choose yourself, even when it meant walking away from everything familiar? How did you find the strength to start over? Drop your stories in the comments below. I read every single one, and I know your experiences might help someone else who is going through something similar right now. We heal together when we share our truths. If this story resonated with you, if it made you feel less alone in whatever you are facing, please hit that like button. It helps more people find this video and hear stories that might give them the courage to make changes in their own lives. And if you are not already subscribed, go ahead and click that subscribe button right now so you do not miss the next story. I share new ones regularly, and each one is about real people facing real challenges and finding their way through to the other side. Finally, if you know someone who needs to hear this message today, please share this video with them. Send it to that friend who deserves better than what they're getting. Share it with that family member who has been making excuses for someone who does not deserve them. You never know who might be sitting alone tonight, wondering if they are the problem, wondering if they should stay or go, wondering if they deserve more. They do. We all do. Thank you so much for being here and for listening to my story. Whatever you are going through, whatever decisions you are facing, I hope you find the strength to choose yourself. You are worthy of a love that does not make you question your worth. You are deserving of a partner who shows up for you every single day. You are enough, exactly as you are. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.
The core lesson from this story is the profound realization that emotional intimacy is the lifeblood of a relationship, and its absence cannot be filled by the hollow thrill of online validation. It teaches us that betrayal often begins long before a physical act. It starts with a deliberate withdrawal of presence and the cold dismissal of shared history as stale. The story serves as a warning that seeking excitement through strangers is a coward's escape from the work required to sustain long-term love. It highlights a painful irony. We often chase mysterious connections with strangers while ignoring the deep, evolving mystery of the person sleeping right next to us. Ultimately, the lesson is that once you stop investing in your partner and begin treating your shared life as a burden rather than a sanctuary, you have already abandoned the marriage, leaving behind a partner who is forced to choose between fading away or using that same cold ingenuity to reclaim their own power.